Episode 32, Bertha Benz's Journey 5, The Transmission. After driving for some distance, they arrived at a hill just before Pforzheim. Once they crossed that hill, they would reach Pforzheim. Bertha and her two sons, Eugen and Richard, were exhausted from the long day's journey. But the thought of reaching Pforzheim after climbing just one last hill gave them renewed strength. Bertha encouraged her sons as they moved forward. Bertha began driving the Motorwagen up the hill. At first, the gentle slope posed no problem, but as the incline became steeper, the Motorwagen's speed noticeably decreased. Eventually, the engine roared loudly, but the vehicle could no longer move forward. Quickly assessing the situation, Bertha realized that the Motorwagen couldn't climb because the hill was too steep. Judging that it was impossible to continue driving, Bertha decided to push the car up the hill with Eugen. She asked Richard to take the steering wheel and went to the back of the Motorwagen with Eugen to push it with all their strength. With the combined power of the engine and their effort, the Motorwagen slowly began climbing the hill. Fortunately, the steep section was not long, and after much effort, they managed to reach the top safely. However, after reaching the top, Bertha and Eugen were drenched in sweat, and their clothes were covered in dirt. As Eugen brushed off his clothes, he wondered why the Motorwagen had failed to climb the hill. Bertha thought that her husband probably hadn't been able to fully test the car under such conditions, and she realized that they would need to improve it so that it could climb steep hills more easily once they returned home. The component that could solve this problem was the gear, and variously sized gears together formed the transmission. A car encounters many different conditions and driving environments while on the road. The road conditions and the load the car carries can also greatly affect performance. However, since the engine's performance has limits, the transmission exists to deliver power efficiently in all these varying situations. A transmission adjusts the output from the engine through gears, reducing or increasing speed to produce the right torque and rotational speed RPM for driving. To briefly explain torque and RPM, torque is the force that turns the wheels, while RPM refers to how many times the crankshaft rotates in 1 minute. Multiplying torque by RPM gives the engine's horsepower. A bicycle with gears can serve as an example of how a transmission works. In a high gear, the wheel moves faster than the pedal motion, allowing for speed on flat ground but requiring more effort. In a low gear, the wheel turns more slowly relative to the pedals, but it allows the rider to climb hills more easily with less effort. The same principle applies to cars. Even at 60 km per hour, a car needs more power on an uphill than on flat terrain. In other words, depending on road conditions, the car may need either lower or higher RPMs to maintain the same speed. The transmission makes this possible. It allows for different combinations of gears to produce the desired torque and rotational speed. Transmissions are generally divided into manual and automatic types. The oldest type, the manual transmission, uses a clutch between the engine and gearbox to disconnect power so the driver can change gears using a shift lever. While the now dominant automatic transmission uses a fluid torque converter and planetary gears to automatically perform all gear changes without a clutch. There are also continuously variable transmissions, CVTs, and semi-automatic transmissions based on racing technology. The Motorwagen had neither a transmission nor even basic gears, which is why it couldn't climb steep slopes. Thus, in the end, Bertha and Eugen had to push it up the hill themselves.
This video continues as a series. Subscribe and you'll get a notification as soon as the next story comes up. Subscribe now and don't miss the next episode.